This is not a drill. In what many analysts are already calling the most defiant economic power move of the decade, Burkina Faso's president, Ibrahim Traoré, has just announced the start of construction on a $47 billion mega canal that could completely redraw the map of global trade, and he's doing it without a single dollar from the IMF, the World Bank, or the European Union. At exactly 6 a.m. this morning in Ouagadougou, standing beneath the rising sun and in front of a crowd so large it stretched beyond Revolution Square, Traoré delivered a message that sent shockwaves from Washington to Brussels and from Wall Street to the City of London. What you're about to hear doesn't just challenge the way Africa builds infrastructure. It challenges the way the world itself has been run for nearly 80 years. Stay with me, because the implications of what happened today will reach far beyond Burkina Faso, far beyond Africa, and straight into the future of global power itself. For those just joining us, let me set the stage. Ibrahim Traoré is not a traditional head of state. At just 36 years old, he rose to power through a military takeover in 2022, at a time when Burkina Faso was facing spiraling insecurity, economic pressure, and growing frustration with international institutions. Since then, he's been called everything from a revolutionary reformer to a destabilizing force in global politics. But today, love him or hate him, he forced the world to pay attention. The project he unveiled is known as the West African Trans-Sahel Canal, a port to 400-kilometer waterway designed to connect the Niger River Basin directly to the Atlantic Ocean, cutting through Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. Let that sink in. If completed, this canal wouldn't just move water, it would move power. It would turn landlocked nations into maritime trading hubs. It would open a direct route for African exports to global markets without passing through traditional Western-controlled shipping corridors. It would reroute billions of dollars in trade flows every single year. And according to projections from the African Development Consortium, the irrigation systems tied to this canal could transform agriculture across the Sahel, potentially lifting over 150 million people out of extreme poverty over the next 2 decades. Now, here's why this matters on a global scale. For more than half a century, every infrastructure project of this magnitude in Africa followed the same script. Governments proposed ambitious plans. The IMF and World Bank stepped in with financing packages. Those loans came with conditions: economic reforms, oversight mechanisms, and long-term repayment. Structures that often tied national budgets to foreign institutions for decades. That system shaped highways, dams, power grids, and ports across the continent. It also shaped politics, policies, and sometimes even leadership itself. And this morning, Ibrahim Traoré stood up and said, "We're not playing that game anymore." At 6:07 a.m., with Chinese and Russian officials standing beside him, Traoré announced that the Trans-Sahel Canal would be funded through a brand new financial framework called the African Sovereign Development Initiative. No IMF, no World Bank, no EU development banks. Instead, the $47 billion funding package is being assembled through a mix of BRICS Development Bank financing, Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank support, direct bilateral agreements with China and Russia, and, most controversially, a sovereign resource fund created by pooling revenues from gold in Mali, uranium in Niger, and newly identified lithium reserves in Burkina Faso. In other words, Africa's own minerals are being used to finance Africa's own future. Traoré didn't mince words in his address. His voice echoed across the square as he said, "For generations, we were told we could not build without permission. We were told our resources belonged to those with the machines to take them. We were told our future had to be financed by debt. Today, we say no. Today, we build with our own hands, our own wealth, and our own vision." The crowd erupted, but in financial capitals across the West, the mood was very different. Within hours, the IMF released a formal statement warning that large-scale projects without international oversight could destabilize regional economies and lead to unsustainable debt exposure. The World Bank followed with its own emergency briefing, cautioning that this project could set a dangerous precedent for developing nations seeking to bypass traditional financial systems. Translated into plain language, this wasn't just concern, this was alarm. Because what Traoré is attempting isn't just a canal. It's an alternative model for development, one that doesn't require approval from the institutions that have dominated global finance since the end of World War II. And here's where the story gets even more intense. According to leaked documents reported by regional financial journalists, Western institutions were not caught completely off guard. They had known about early planning discussions for months. Sources claim multiple financing offers were made behind closed doors offers that would have brought the project back under traditional IMF and World Bank frameworks. All of them were rejected. One anonymous official reportedly quoted Traoré as saying, "We will not build another monument to our dependence. If this project is meant to free us, it cannot be financed by the same system that keeps us tied." Now let's go to the ground level, because this isn't just about geopolitics and financial systems. This is about people. In a small village along the proposed canal route, a woman named Fatimata Diallo stood watching the announcement on a shared mobile phone. She's 62 years old and has lived her entire life in a region where water access is unreliable, where farming depends on unpredictable rains, and where opportunity often means leaving home. The canal's irrigation network promises to bring year-round water to thousands of villages like hers. She told a local reporter, "My grandmother died without seeing a river. My mother died without seeing a river. And now they say the water is coming to us. If this is true, then this isn't just construction. This is a miracle." But while villagers talk about water and crops, boardrooms in Europe are talking about contracts and influence. Several major European engineering firms had reportedly positioned themselves for what they assumed would be a traditionally funded Western-backed infrastructure project. Now, they've been completely locked out. Political reactions have been sharply divided. Some leaders in Africa have praised the move as a step toward real economic independence. Others have quietly expressed concern about the financial risks of relying so heavily on non-Western partners and commodity-backed financing. China's foreign ministry called the project an example of South-South cooperation and a more balanced global development model. Russia announced it would provide technical expertise through resource exchange agreements instead of cash payments. Move analysts describe this as a direct challenge to dollar-based financing. And this is where the bigger picture comes into focus. If this canal succeeds, it proves something revolutionary. That large nations and even entire regions can fund, build, and manage mega projects outside the traditional Western financial system. That doesn't just change Africa's future, it changes the rules of the global economy. Because if you can build a $47 billion canal without the IMF, what else can you build? A continental power grid, a pan-African rail network, a technology sector that doesn't, rely on Silicon Valley investment, a trade system that doesn't depend on the US dollar. These questions were theoretical a year ago. Today, they're practical. Sources close to the African Sovereign Development Initiative say the canal is only phase one of a broader plan that includes regional energy networks, cross-border industrial zones, and shared digital infrastructure across multiple African nations. So here we are, as of this morning, heavy equipment is already breaking ground. Engineers are surveying routes, workers are being trained. The Trans-Sahel Canal is no longer an idea, it's a reality in motion. Whether this becomes a symbol of African sovereignty or a warning about financial risk won't be clear for years. But one thing is already certain. The global order shifted today, not with a war, not with a treaty, but with a shovel hitting the earth in the heart of West Africa. Traoré ended his speech with words that are already being quoted across social media and international newsrooms. They told us we needed them to build our future. Today, we learned we only needed ourselves. So I'll leave you with this question. What happens when the developing world stops asking for permission and starts building anyway?